good evening. It's Monica from Life is Art, and it's Wednesday. Let's create. Pardon me for the delay this evening. We were just having a minute trying to get everything started, but we're here now. And tonight we're going to be making a bleacher front card. That's what I'm calling it. And it probably goes by other names, but that's what it kind of makes me think of, is a bleacher. And if you're not familiar with that, think a sporting event and you're sitting on that sort of stadium seating where you're in bleachers, so kind of tiered like a choir would stand on, that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to be creating today. And we're going to be using from the mini catalog, the September to December catalog, we're going to be using one of the specialty papers. It's called A Little Bit Festive. It's a 12 by 12 specialty designer series paper, or DSP for short. If you ever hear that acronym DSP, it stands for Designer Series Paper, and it's basically pattern paper. And it comes with 3 different sheets of double-sided pattern paper and then 3 sheets of die cuts. So we're going to be using one of the pattern papers for this. We're also going to be using the Yuletide Village stamp set, which is also from this catalog. And it's this one right here. And we're also going to be using a sentiment from the one-of-a-kind stamp set. So lots of things happening, and there will be a lot of measurements. If you want to jot them down, you can, but I will post them when I post the information and the pictures about the card. If you scroll right to the bottom, you'll see dimensions, and that's where all the measurements will be. And just to remind everybody, when I post measurements, if I say 6 by 8, that will be 6 inches across and 8 inches long. So it's always width then height for the pieces of paper. All right, so that just helps because sometimes it's not very clear and everybody has their own little way of doing it, but I always do width then height. Hey Deborah, nice to see you're watching. Good evening. If you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And if you're watching later on replay, you can just say replay or drop a comment. So we're going to be making a bleacher front card. The first thing that we need to start with is a piece of cardstock. And all my pieces of cardstock are going to be the same color. Doesn't matter what color you use. There's lots of lovely colors in the designer series paper or the pattern paper that we're using tonight. There's a few different greens. There's cherry cobbler. There is Misty Moonlight, Night of Navy, there's Pecan Pie, all sorts of lovely colors in there. So lots to choose from. I've decided to go very simple, and we're using basic white as my base. Good evening, Lynn. Nice to see you're watching. So my first piece is 3.5 by 4.25 inches, which seems kind of small to start out with, but that's okay. This card will fit into a standard size 4.25 by 5.5 sized envelope that will hold that size of card. So standard size card. We're starting out with this. And before we do anything, we're actually going to stamp on the back side of this, which I know sounds kind of funny to start out by stamping on the back of your card, but that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to be using the sentiment from the one-of-a-kind stamp set that says, "Hope you have the merriest season ever." Okay, there's also some little snowflakes on here. So yeah, maybe I'll add a little snowflake action on there as well. So let's grab ourselves a block. Maybe I'll grab one of these. There we go. Let's grab our 3 little snowflakes here. We'll make ourselves a little cluster of snowflakes. Let's see. Maybe like that. There we go. And I've got my sentiment all ready. Let's see, what color do we want to do our snowflakes in? Maybe the, I hadn't made this decision. Misty Moonlight. That would be kind of pretty maybe. Or we could use Pretty Peacock, because that's also, yeah, let's go with Pretty Peacock because it's farther up in the stack and it'll make less noise pulling it out. Always a good way to make your decisions. What's easiest to get to? Let's add a few little snowflakes here. And then why not add a few little snowflakes there? Just to add a little bit of color to the back of our card. And we're also going to come in with the sentiment. Hope you have the merriest season ever. Gonna ink that up. And I'm going to put it up here in the corner. And that will give us a little more space to do our writing on our card. Okay, so that was on the back of our card. We used the Pretty Peacock. And so now we need to turn it over. And we're going to be adding some papers here. So let me run through a couple of the measurements. So this one was 3.5 by 4 1/4. Then we're going to come in with 2 pieces. Let me just grab them here. Of, again, basic white. And these are 2 inch by 2 inch. Pretty simple. So we've got those 2 pieces. 2 inches by 2 inches. Then we're going to have 2 pieces that are, let me just double check, 4.5 by 3/4. So 4.5 by 3/4. We're just going to line them all up here. And then our last piece in basic white for this part of our adventure is 4.5 by 1 inch. Okay, so let me run through those one more time. 3.5 by 4 1/4, 2 2 inch by 2 inch, 2 4.5 by 3/4 of an inch, and 1 4.5 by 1 inch. And again, I will write all those measurements out for you so you don't have to try and remember them. All right, now we're going to need to do some scoring on these 3 4.5 inch strips. So let me just grab my Simply Scored board here. And let's grab the one that's 1 inch to start with. So our 4.5 by 1 inch. Along the 4.5 inch side, we're going to score it at 1/2 inch. And then at 4 inches. And basically what we're making is a 1/2 inch tab on either end. Okay, we're going to do that again with our 3/4 inch piece. So we're going to score it at 1/2 inch and 4 inches. Okay, so these are all 4.5 inches long. And then our last one, which is also the 4.5 by 3/4 of an inch, and we're going to score it at 1/2 inch and 4 inches. Easy. We got it. And then let's grab our 2 2 by 2 pieces, and we're going to score them both at 1/2 inch. Are you seeing a theme happening here? We're making a lot of 1/2 inch tabs. So there's 1 and 2. Oops, that bounced around. 2. Both at 1/2 inch. Okay, all of our scoring is done. We can put this away. Alrighty. First step, we're going to take our 2 inch by 2 inch and we're going to fold on that score line and crease it down. Okay, I'm going to take the other one. We're folding with the bump side to the inside of the crease. So the bump side went in here and we folded it. Okay, now these are going to be sort of wings on the side of our card base. And so we need to have opposites, right? So our tabs are going to be on the inside, the flat part towards the outside. We'll straighten things up here so it looks a little less chaotic. Okay, but we want to create a bleacher, which means it's going to be angled. So these two 2-inch pieces need to be angled. Let's grab our pencil. And what we're going to do is we're going to line up our piece somewhere along here where we can measure. And we're going to come up 1 inch on the side that's opposite the flap. So we're going to come 1 inch up from the top, and we're going to end up trimming between that 1 inch mark and this score line. So I'm just going to mark that as well, because sometimes it's a little hard to see when you get it in your trimmer. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So this is why we've got them on opposite sides. We've got our flaps pointing towards our card base. So now we're going to come to this outside edge. So we mark the outside edge on this side. We're going to mark the outside edge on this side. We're going to come up 1 inch from the bottom and put a little pencil mark. And then we're also going to mark that score line at the top. Then we need our little trimmer. Let me just grab that. So on this left side, we're going to trim from pencil mark to pencil mark. So we line it up and trim. And then you can see that angle going down towards the left. Now we're going to trim the other one from pencil mark to pencil mark, so that 1 inch up on the outside edge and the score line. And now we've got a taper on that side. We can use our eraser to get rid of those pencil marks if we'd like, just to keep everything neat and tidy. And one more thing we can do, it's not, you don't have to, but it just makes it look a little neater, is on these little 1/2 inch tabs up here at the top point, we're just going to cut a little triangle off, just like that. So we're making a little angle on that tab. Let's do it to the other side as well. So we're just taking off a little bit of that paper, a little bit of bulk. You could call that a mitered corner. Okay, so now we need to add some adhesive to this folded over flap. Okay, so we need our adhesive. So I'm going to open it flat, and so now you can see it's angling towards the paper. That's the side of the flap that we need, because that's the part of the flap that's going to be touching our card base. Okay, so there we go. Our folded over flap has adhesive. Now we're going to add some adhesive onto this one. You could use liquid glue for this if you wanted. Let me grab my take your pick tool to help me pull my backings off. Now, because I'm using a tape, I need to make sure that I don't have any tape sticking over the edges. So all you do is just fold it over, just like that. Okay, so we've got our flap, and it's folded back on itself. And I'm going to flip it over so that sticky side with the creases over here, and we're going to line that up with the bottom of our card base. So we're going to line the bottom up, we're going to line up the side, make sure everything lines up good, and then we're going to stick it down. So now our flap opens like that, just like the little opening on a vest or a jacket. Okay, now let's take off some adhesive on the other side. The bleacher card, as I'm calling it today, I think is very much like how you would create a box card. So if you've ever created a box card, you can let me know that in the comments. If you've ever made one with an angled front as opposed to flaps that open and close like a box, then that's this style. Okay, so we've got our folded over with the adhesive stick in there. This is our folded over creased piece, and we're going to line it up with the bottom and with the side. the straighter we get everything on there, the better our card is going to work. Okay, so now we've got our two little flippy flappies. Now we should have double checked to make sure that all of our stamping was the right way up, but we never moved it, so I was hoping for the best. Okay, then we're going to bring in a piece of the pattern paper, the designer series paper, from the A Little Bit Festive. Let me just double check. So yes, A Little Bit Festive. And this is, I think, probably my favorite pattern from that collection. It's just like lovely evergreen boughs just cascading down, full of all sorts of baubles. It looks like a close-up of a really big tree, and lovely decorated with red and this kind of like that pretty peacock or misty moonlight kind of combination, and the cherry cobbler. So pretty. And this has been cut to 3 1/4 by 4 inches. We're going to add some adhesive on this side with the lovely candy stripes. There we go. Just take our backing off. And we're going to center this on our card, and that's going to hide those little flaps that we've attached. The little tabs there will just kind of disappear behind that lovely pattern. Isn't that pretty? I think this would look pretty with a little bit of Wink of Stella touches here and there, or you know, a little dab of bling somewhere on there. Wouldn't that be gorgeous? Okay, now we have our 1 inch 4.5 by 1 inch piece that has been scored at 1/2 inch on either end. And again, we're going to fold that towards the back, like so, which puts the bump side to the inside. Always bump side to the inside. And we need to add some adhesive on these 2 flaps. So think of tucking them to the back, and we need to add the adhesive on this side, which means when we open it up, we're putting them on the front side here where the mountain fold part is. So let's add, if you had a 1/2 inch adhesive, that would work great for this. Mine is a 1/4 inch, so I'm adding 2 strips just for extra stick-to-itiveness. We'll call it that anyway. All right, so now I'm going to remove the adhesive from just one side. Not the adhesive, the backing. I'm going to leave the backing on the other side. So if you were using liquid glue, you would only put liquid glue on one side. Make sure nothing's hanging over. And I like to line my card up with a line here on my paper, just to keep everything straight in my mind. This is the side that still has the backing on the adhesive. This is the sticky side. We're going to fold it to the back. So now it's sticky towards the back. We're going to take this piece and we're going to line it up with this corner of the wing. So we're going to line it up so that it's straight along there, but that it's also straight along the base of our card. Okay, so when you lay it down, it should just follow all the way across. All right. Now, we're not going to do anything with this adhesive just yet. We have a few steps to do. Let's open that up. So now you can see we have a really fun shaped card happening here. We've got all sorts of flaps just flipping out everywhere, but don't flip out. It's okay. Our next 2 pieces are the same as that one, but they're just a little skinnier. So these are the 4.5 by 3/4 inch. And again, we've made 1/2 inch tabs on either side. Let's fold those with the bump side to the inside and crease them down like so. Next one, bump side to the inside. When you say bump side to the inside, when you're talking about a card base, it makes a lot of sense. When you're talking about a strip, you're like, well, how do you know which side is the inside? Well, the inside means that the bump is going to be on the inside of the creased piece. So inside that fold is where the bump goes. And it makes sense because when you're scoring this, you're pushing and making a dent on this side, and that has stretched the fibers on this side of the card because you've made a dent. You've stretched the fibers. If you fold it the other way with the bump side to the outside, those pieces have not been stretched. And that's when you're going to get the cracking and all sorts of weird things and not necessarily a nice straight fold. But if you take the part that's already been stretched and stretch it a little more, it's already had stretching. It's like trying to do exercises when you didn't stretch. It doesn't go so well. So think your paper's been exercised. Not exorcised, but exercised. And so this side has already had some stretching. It can stretch a little more. Make sense? I hope so. Now, again, we're going to put adhesive on these flaps. So we're going to open them up to make life easy. I'm going to scooch that up a little bit. And we're going to add adhesive just like we did with the other one on each end. If you're going to have a card that has a lot of interaction to it, you know it's going to get moved around a lot. You sometimes want to put this kind of adhesive and a liquid adhesive. And that combination is good because for now, this kind of adhesive will hold it in place. But when that liquid adhesive dries, that just gives you a whole extra bit of insurance, right? Okay, now here's where you get a little bit of measuring happening. I'm going to line up my card along one of the lines here, okay? And I'm going to remove the backing from one end of one of these strips. And what we want to do is we want to have these two strips placed equally along this little wing. And so the easiest way to do that is to line it up and use a ruler. And what you want to do, we know that this is a 2-inch, a 2-inch distance. So we want to, is it 2 inches? 1, 2, 3. It's 1.5 inches. That's right. It started out at 2, and we folded a 1/2 inch to the top. We have 1.5 inches. So if we divide it equally into 3 sections, that will give us 2 lines running down here. And so those 2 lines are where we want to, in our mind, put these little flaps, these little tabs. So the best way to do that is to come 1/2 inch out from our card base. So line it up so that this main base is on a line. Then we're going to come 1/2 inch out. And where that 1/2 inch out hits the card, that's where we're going to line up our ruler. This is at that 1/2 inch line right there and right there. So we know it's nice and straight. We're going to take our flap and we're going to fold it to the back, just like we did before. And then we're going to line our strip up from the point where our card hits that 1/2 inch mark all the way across, hopefully in a straight line, all the way across, okay? And then we're going to take our second piece. Don't worry about this side. It's all good. It's just going to hang out there. We're going to take our second piece. If I can get the backing off, remove the backing from one end. We're going to fold the tab to the back so it's nice and sticky on the back. We're going to make sure we're lined up again. And we're going to come out now 1 inch. So we're going to come another 1/2 inch. So this is 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 1 inch. So this line is where we want to line this up. So let's put our ruler there, right where it touches that angle. This is why it's a little bit tricky because we're lining up along an angle. If we were lining up along a straight piece, we wouldn't have to worry. But when you use a mat like this, that really helps. So let's line that up at that mark. Make sure it's straight across and stick it down. So you're not measuring along the edge of the angle. You're measuring the distance out from the card base, 1/2 inch, line up with that line, or 1 inch and line up with that line. Okay, does that make sense? Give me a yes, it makes sense if you're watching and you think that makes sense. All right, so now we have our first 1 inch flap. We have a 3/4 inch flap and another 3/4 inch flap. Okay, let's fold them all to the right. And now we're going to remove the backings from all 3 flaps. Might need to take your pick tool for this if you're like me. It's just easier to grab onto things that way. Just peel and lift. Okay. So all of our flaps, and they're going to have the adhesive side sticking up. Don't tuck them under. Just have them facing up. Oops. All right. Make sure everything's nice and flat. I got something on there already. That's okay. We're going to cover it up. So now we've got adhesive, adhesive, adhesive. And all we're going to do is we're going to take this arm and we're going to fold it over and stick it down and get it into all that adhesive. Now, when we stand it and we push that side back, look what happens. We have created a nice little bleacher of cardstock all the way across. Look at that. So we've got angles, and it's like little stair steps going up, and nice little spaces out front, just like you have in a box card. But in a box card, you usually have them flat, right? And they're usually up higher. So this is kind of a little bit different. Okay, now that we've got that base done, and I know that takes a hot minute to do, but now we get to do some fun stuff. So on the outside of these 2 outside pieces, the wings, we're going to add some more pattern paper. And I have a piece there and a piece there. Got to make sure I've got them the right way. The ornaments do have little hooks on them, so that kind of tells you. And these 2 pieces are 1 1/4 by 1 1/2 inches. So you need 2 of those. I'm using the same pattern as I used on the base. So 1 1/4 by 1 1/2. And you want to trim, because we have to make an angle. There's our little angle we're working towards. We're going to go on this side from our top left corner. And on the right hand side, we're going to mark up 3/4 inch. Okay. And then for this one, which will go on this side, so you're looking at the angle here, we're going to go from the top right corner, line it up, and we're going to trim down to 3/4 inch, which is exactly in the middle of this little piece. So let's bring in our little trimmer. We have to use our eyeballs pretty carefully. So we're going from the top left corner to our 3/4 inch mark to create that angle. Okay, so that's for the left side. And then for the right side, we're going from the top right corner to the 3/4 inch mark on the left side. And that's that one. And of course, we can use our eraser to remove our pencil marks. And let's adhere these. Alrighty. So this one's going on the left side. And we can fold it down flat because that just makes life easy. like that, to the right side. Adhere that one down. Like that. And then for our front panel, we're going to have one more piece of that pattern paper. And this is 4.5 by, sorry, nope, 3.25. Totally wrong. 3.25. I was looking at the wrong measurement, by 3/4. So 3.25 by 3/4. And let's stick that on the front. Lots of little pieces. Now we're going to get to the good stuff, because now we're going to get to just kind of do some decorating. And there, look at that pattern paper is just going to cover up that little bit of ink or whatever that got on the front. Love it. Okay, now let's add in our little village. So we have the stamp set, the Yuletide Village, and we're going to use all of these little houses. We're going to use our little fence that's made out of rocks. We're going to use our little bit of pretty lights. We're going to use our tree. We're going to use this other tree. The only thing we're not using for this particular project is this little cluster of snow. So some of this I have done ahead of time. So I'm going to show you one portion of it. So this piece of paper has been cut to 3 3/8 inch wide. And that's because this width here is 3.5 inches. So this is 1/8 of an inch less, which means it will fit inside all of those spaces, okay? And I want a piece of paper that goes pretty much from side to side. So this is 3 3/8. Okay, we're going to do some stamping on here. And we have this little house that has 2 houses together, actually. And let's grab our Memento ink for this. We're going to ink it up, and we want to stamp 1 inch up from the bottom. Okay, we're going to stamp right over near the edge. Hopefully put our houses on straight, and there we go. And you'll notice that this stamped image, I like how the little snow drift kind of continues past, and we're going to kind of use that as our guide. Okay, so we've got our little houses stamped on there. And then I want to come in and add a little bit of these Christmas lights that are sort of blingy blingy looking. And to help me with that, I'm going to use some masking with the sticky notes. And I'm just going to put a little bit along the edge of my house here. And a little bit along the edge of my house here. Sticky notes are great for this. And even after I'm done stamping, I can actually just use it for a note. So they're not going to get wasted. We're going to ink this up. And then we're going to find a spot, a little hard for me because I'm way far away. I'm going to have to scooch closer to me. Where some of these kind of all fit on our house roof. Sorry, just below the eave. Just above the windows, below the eave, we're going to stamp a little line of little lights. So it looks like our house on our left has nice little Christmas lights on it. See that? And just that little bit of masking keeps it all where we want it. Okay? And that is a nice little touch because it's something different from what else is happening on here. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we want to stamp an evergreen tree on here. So let's grab this lovely evergreen tree. And we're going to stamp it right about there. And you'll notice it's a little bit lower than where our house is if we imagine our snowdrifts going across. But that's okay because we want to do something else. Let's use one of our little Post-it notes here. We're going to ink this up and we're going to stamp a second tree on our sticky note. We're going to do a little fussy cutting with this. And you'll notice I stamped up near where the sticky bit is on my Post-it note. I'm going to trim down, following right along the stamped line of the tree, and we're going to create a mask of this little tree. It doesn't have to be absolutely precise, but you do want to be fairly careful because we're trying to mask it. We'll go all the way down like that, and that'll be good. Okay, we only need to do one side of the tree for this particular project. And then we just take our little mask and we put it right on top of the tree that we've already stamped. It just lines up there like that. Then we take our stamp again, ink it up, and we can stamp a second tree. Easy peasy. Take our mask off. Look at that. Now it looks like we've got two trees growing, one sort of behind the other, filling in that space nicely. Let's grab one more tree. This time, we're going to be using the little deciduous tree. These are evergreens. This is deciduous. The one that would have had leaves on it. Now it's just a tree, a naked tree. No leaves. We're going to ink it up and we're going to stamp it in the gap in between. Just like that. We're just filling in, creating a scene. We're making a scene. All right. Now let's do a little bit of coloring on here. So I have some Stampin' Blend markers. I've got Real Red, and I'm using the light one for this. I've got Granny Apple Green, and I'm using the dark one. I have Native Navy, and I'm using the light. And I have Smoky Slate, the light one. I also have Pecan Pie, light and dark. Okay, so we've got a nice little assortment. And these are colors that look nice with our paper. And you can always look up the colors that are in the Designer Series paper pack, and that gives you a good idea. Now, technically, Cherry Cobbler is the red that's used in this, but that's okay. We can work with it. We'll make it work. Okay, so on our little house here, let's start out with our red. And whenever I'm coloring with markers, I like to have, well, you know what, we can use our little Post-it note here. Something on the side to just check my marker before I start. And we're going to color in just some simple coloring. We're going to do sort of our woodwork on this house with some red. Just on these windowsills and the chimney. And then let's also do this one down here. We can color in our door. Now you could get elaborate with your coloring. You could color the houses all different colors. Let's also do this little red bow on the neighbor's door. Okay. Then let's come in with our light Pecan Pie. And we're going to do the neighbor's chimney and also the eave and a little bit of the roof here. We're going to add that color in, and then the windowsills. Now these windowsills have a nice little covering of snow on them, so we're not going to color that because it can stay white. There we go. And let's also maybe give our little snowman a little of the light pecan pie on his little twiggy arms. Let's bring in the dark pecan pie to add some color to our little tree. And it's as simple as a line down the trunk and then just a flick on the branches, and that's it. Super simple on that one. And then let's also bring in our Granny Apple. And let's color the eaves over here. This house is going to be Christmas themed, red and green house with white siding. There we go. And then let's also color our little trees. You know what? I think I might switch to the brush end. And these little trees actually have some little snowy branches. So you can just decide which part is going to be green and which part is going to be white, and you can switch it up between trees so that all your trees don't look the same. And just go ahead and color to your heart's content. I'm just adding this dark granny apple on there like that. Okay, then we'll come over to the second tree. Like so. And let's make it a little different here and there. Like that. Looking good. And come across the bottom. There we go. Just fill that all in. Pretty little trees. Oh my goodness. All right, now I didn't, not going to use the blue on this one, but I did use it elsewhere. That's why I showed you that. And then we're also going to come in with the light Smoky Slate, and we're going to add a little bit of dimension to the snow on our roofs. So down the left side, across here, down the left side, and across here. Same with this, down, across. We're going to come in under the eaves and add a little shadow. It just gives a little bit of dimension. We can even come in under our little window ledges, our window sills, and we can come down the side of the house like that. We'll do the same over here, under the eaves, and under our little window sills like that. Let's do the concrete. And then let's add a little dimension to our snow. So we're just going to add a little bit there. We can have a little bit of a path coming off our thing. We can put a little shadow coming from our trees. Like that. And, I mean, you can mess around with it as much as you want. Let's put a little shadow on the left side of our snowman, too, for funsies. Okay, so I'm not going to show you every single layer that I stamped, but let's go ahead and fussy cut this out. We are going to keep this bottom portion below our snowdrift intact, square, exactly as it is. We're just going to cut around the top portion. Okay, so we're going to pivot our paper to do our fussy cutting. We're going to leave a halo of the background, which is our basic white. And we're just going to follow the shape all the way around. Who else is glad right now that you're not going to watch me do every single one of these? There are actually 4 layers that we're doing here. So I'm going to show you one, and you can just picture how I did the rest. I'll kind of point out any little details. But we did some masking, we did some stamping, we did some coloring, and that's pretty much the basics for making these little vignettes, little Yuletide Village scenes, which I think are so cute. Do any of you have those little Christmas villages that, you know, you put them together with the little fake snow underneath, and they all light up at night? I have a little 3-house set that sits in my kitchen on the windowsill, and then my mom gave me a little bit larger set that goes on my dry sink in the winter time. All right, so let's bring in our base. Now, the other layers that I created. So my back layer, I stamped out the little church. And you can see there I added some of the pecan pie to the steeple and the roof. A little bit of shadowing on the snow and around the edges. Use the same colors, the granny apple green. There's a little bit of red on the bow on the wreath. Okay, so this little tree is part of the stamp with the church. So I added these two naked trees and then one of the big trees. Okay, and of course colored out the pathway too. Now what I want to do is just add some adhesive to the back of this. Now this particular one is going to be against our base. So you can add adhesive all over this. That will not be the case with the next few. Okay, and you can see that I left about an inch below, and I did not fussy cut it. I left it square. Okay, so this piece is going to tuck right in here, centered on the back, and you want to tuck it down far enough so that your steeple is still contained within the card, and then we can stick it down. Okay, if your steeple sticks up too high, that is our 4 1/4 width. So if you want it to fit in a standard size envelope, you have to stay within that edge or it won't fit. That makes sense? So there's our little church off in the background. Then our next layer, I stamped just the single house over here, and I used that little brick wall. I stamped it twice, created a little brick wall. Now I did a little bit of mixing here. I colored with the dark real red, and then I added a tiny little touch of pecan pie on top just to tone down the redness and make it look more bricky. And this is where we used the Night of Navy, the light, to color this house. And of course, the same little treatment with the snow. Again, leaving it square. So for this one, we want to add our adhesive right at the bottom of this piece. Okay? And that is because that allows us to adjust where it's going to sit on this first little spacer at the back. So we're going to take this piece and we're going to slide it down into this space, and you have to kind of play with it. So you're going to slide it down in and decide where it's going to sit. And I think that's a little too high. So I'm actually going to use my scissors just to trim this off. We're going to trim some of that off, which is going to take off some of our adhesive, but that's okay. We're going to trim it off. We'll add a little more adhesive. We left a generous amount of space at the bottom so that we could do that. Okay? You just want to make sure that your part that's got adhesive doesn't go below this little 3/4 inch piece, because otherwise when you close it, it's going to stick to your back. You don't want that. So the bottom of this has to be higher than the bottom of that, or you got to trim it. All right. Now, of course, I'm trying to do it in the air so you can see, but it's better if I set it down. I'm going to line it up here. And yes, that looks better to me. Line it up. And you can even squish it down to make it stick. And there you can see we've got our first stuck out the front layer like that. Isn't that pretty? So even when it's closed, it's going to make a really cool scene. But I love the dimension that it creates. It looks like streets. You know, you're kind of in a drone looking at the streets, and you can see kind of all the different things that are happening. So our next layer is going to be this house. Now, before we put the adhesive on, I'm just going to line it up and see where I want it to sit. And I think I want it to be right down like that. So we're going to trim, before we get the adhesive on there, we're going to trim a little bit off. Maybe I'll trim it this direction. We're going to just take off 1/4 inch. Like that. We're going to stick our adhesive on the back. So it's better when you start out to be generous with the amount that you leave, and then decide how much you want when the time comes. So when I was stamping these out, what I actually did was I cut a strip of paper that was 3 3/8, and it was like 11 inches long. And I started at the bottom, came up an inch, and I did my stamping where I wanted it. Okay. And then I just trimmed that off, made a straight edge. You can't see what I'm doing. I lined this up, stamped it an inch up from the bottom, did my whole scene, and then I just trimmed straight across. And then I stamped on the next one and the next. And that way I had all these little sections that had nice square bottoms. They were all 3 3/8. And I just kept going. And it pretty much used the full 11 inches of my strip of paper. Okay, so our next layer is going on here in the next section. Now, quite often when you create a box card, you will see people using foam tape to stick some things ahead and some things behind each of the divisions. I'm not doing that for this because I don't want the bulk of it. There's already enough layers of things happening here, and there's no need for it. We're already creating like streets of our little houses. Doesn't that look so cute so far? Deborah says she has to make this one for her mom because she loves this type of card. Yes, I think it's just so cool. And you know, when it's on display, it's just its own little scene, right? It's just so pretty. But it's so easy to mail because it just folds right down. Doesn't matter which direction. And even when you pull it out of the card, it looks cute when it's folded flat like that, right? Okay, for our front, because yes, we're going to add more here on the front. We're using all of our houses, remember? So I have gone ahead and I have stamped out the house that's on an angle. See how all these 3 houses are straight on? Our house is on, or our church is on an angle, kind of with the back end going to the right. This house has the back end going to the left, and it's the larger of the houses. Like this single house is the same size as those 2 houses. So to have this house in behind would be disproportionate because the things that are closer to you appear larger. Okay, now our church is pretty big and it's in the distance, but churches are big. Okay, now probably this house would look better behind this house because this is actually a pretty big house too. But just because my church is there, I just wanted to be able to see things more clearly, and it made more sense the way I stuck them in my mind. But this little house is much bigger, so it needs to be in the foreground. And so I have gone ahead and stamped it. But instead of leaving it square at the bottom, I trimmed it out. And I just sort of made it come out a little bit and go around, and I sort of shaped the bottom. And now we're going to add just a little bit of adhesive right at the bottom of it, along that shaped little snowy bottom. And then we can go ahead and stick this on here. And what I want to do is I don't want to have it so far down that you see the pattern paper above. I want it to be up so that the pattern paper doesn't show above my snow line. Okay. Now to fill in this little space over here, we're going to grab another little scrap of cardstock, and we're going to stamp 3 of these little trees. The little trees that have no leaves. And the great thing about this is these can be stamped side by side without doing any masking because there's no leaves. The branches can overlap because if you look at trees outside in the winter, their branches overlap. So I'm going to stamp one, and then I'm going to come up a little bit and stamp to the right. See how it's raised up a little bit? So it looks like it's in behind. And then we're going to stamp one to the left, raised up a little bit, with all their little branches overlapping. Easy peasy. And then we'll come in with the, just check, good to go, with the Pecan Pie. And we're going to just go up the trunk and out the branches, up the trunk, out the branches. So if you're not a coloring expert, ooh, these trees are so easy to color. No skill required whatsoever. Now, this next little bit, you have to do a little imagination, but we need to give this little trio a little bit of a snowy a snowy footing. So we're going to add a little bit of snow in between and a little bit of snow in front. We can even give a little shadow going off there like that. And then we can just fussy cut that out. If I can pick it up. Let me grab my paper snips. And so let's see how we create this edge. So we're going to come out farther than our little snowy edge there. Not too far because we don't want to take up more than the width of our card. Then we're going to curve and we're going to come in. We're leaving white above the snow. We're going to go around our little trees and you can decide how precise you want. I just kind of make like little scallopy feelings around. So you're just pivoting your paper, pivot, pivot, pivot. And then the last one, pivot, pivot, pivot. Around and around she goes. Lynn is liking it too. Awesome. I'm so glad. And then we're going to come in by this tree. And then we're going to come back out where this snow is. And we're going to go around it. And then we need to kind of just sort of make a little bit of graceful cascading down. And then we're going to cascade back up. Because we're trying to make like a little puddle of snow around our trees. Okay, so there's our little puddle of snow, and you want to think horizontal lines. So that first line is horizontal, then we've got another blip down and another blip down, and we're just kind of going around them, all right? You don't want to have like bulgy going this way. You want to have very horizontal lines to give you that landscapey feel, if that makes sense. Random words I'm using there. Let's add a little bit of adhesive just at the bottom of those trees. And I might have even gone over the edge, but that's okay. With that kind of tape, you just kind of push it and fold it. And then our little trees, again, they're going to be above where the pattern paper is, so that we don't have any weird pattern paper sticking out. And even come a little higher. There we go. And you just want to feel on the back side. I didn't go too high up, so I don't feel any adhesive. And there we go. There is our little winter Yuletide Village scene created. Now, of course, we could add some bling on there if we wanted. I was thinking it would be cute to have a little wink of Stella on those snowy roofs. Wouldn't that look cute? And then you just pop it in your card. So let me just line it up here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4, and it only comes to 5 inches. So this will fit in a standard size envelope, easy peasy, and it's not even that thick because we didn't add any foam tape or anything. So it's no thicker than any regular card. Then on the back, we've got that lovely stamping that we did with our pretty peacock, added a few little snowflakes, and our hope you have a merriest season ever. Our lovely designer series paper, pattern paper added to all the outside edges and to our back, just creating a lovely festive scene. And I love how they're all just cascading down like the hillside of a town, and super cute. We've got that little brick wall there. We've got the trees. We've got, you know, the bows and the wreaths happening. And you know what? I was going to color that little bow right there. Let me grab my red. Let's just add, it could stay white, but let's add a little bit of extra Christmas cheer on there. All right, so that is our bleacher front card. Think of sitting on a bleacher, waiting for something to happen, sporting event or something, and that will give you the frame of mind for what we're creating with that card. So a bleacher front card. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that come together. My mom even suggested this would be fun in an album as sort of a little pop-up interactive. Wouldn't that be super cute? And I hope you guys enjoyed that. And if you create one of these, I would love for you to take a photo and pop it in the comments when I post my pictures. And that way we can see and be inspired by your cards as well. And you can pick any kind of stamp set that you want for this kind of card. You could have little penguins cavorting about on a snowy hill. You could have Christmas reindeer out in the forest. You could have anything. It doesn't even have to be winter related. And I love that about fun fold and fancy fold cards is that they translate. You learn the base pattern and then the pattern translates for whatever occasion you want to use it for. All right, have a wonderful evening. We'll see you again soon. Toodaloo. Bye.